Well, hello everyone. And as ever, my technology, I wasn't very good with the intro. My bad. Today, I want to do something different with Mindability Matters. And we really are doing an extra. A lot of you know that through my experience with menopause and hair loss during that time, I really needed to look after my health in a very different way. And I tried red light caps, I tried all sorts of things. And recently, I came across a company called Oxydise, where they have red light therapies, they have red light beds. We now use the hyperbaric chambers as well. And I really started to feel a difference, notice a difference in me, my mindset, my skin, how I concentrate. And when I spoke to Alan about coming on the show today and just really talking about the benefits, he jumped at the chance. So, without further ado, Alan, why don't you introduce yourself and just explain a little bit more about Oxydise and what you do?
Sure. Thank you, Sam, for first of all having me on. So it's a pleasure. So basically, Oxydise, we primarily started with renting and selling hyperbaric oxygen equipment. So this is now seen across the country. We've got a number of units that are either in people's homes predominantly, which is where they often go, on a rent to buy model. So they would take it for 2 months and then they would look to buy, or if they're particularly solving a particular complication that's resolved, then they may hand that back to us. And they're into a lot of commercial environments now as well, from beauticians to gyms and even dentists and those kind of locations. So there's a kind of uptick in what people are seeing depending on what they're applying it to. So whether it's recovering from injuries, whether it's improving outcomes with wound healing, or in many cases, 60% of our clients have them for recovering from cancer. So that's a big part of our client portfolio, basically. But yeah, we've got into it and it's extended so far in a very short space of time that we're now serving them to Premier League footballers' homes, professional boxers in Ben Whittaker, and of course, the world's strongest man, actually 3 times world's strongest man, Tom Stoltman, is now a new client of ours. So, and they drop into our social media and say, oh, we'd love to work with you. And here they go, and off we are on a journey with them, improving their VO2 max outcomes and their recovery times. And it's an extraordinary sort of number of data points that we touch in terms of the way in which we approach things. But Oxydise has only been going 2 years, and in that time, we've managed to become one of the leaders in the industry in the UK. We have sent out chambers to Singapore, Indonesia, and America, and continue to do so in those locations. But this is our predominant HQ at the moment. And as we've come to get to know each other, we met at Oxydise Wellness Lab, which we've created just outside of Cambridge in Newmarket. And you came as a client and came to a few of the sessions there. And we use that as our headquarters now. So we can demonstrate our equipment to clients from around the country, but also offer a solution to find our equipment to people that want to come just per session and use the equipment that way. So I don't know if that's a kind of vague, holistic view of things as they stand at the moment, but it's the most rewarding thing I've ever done. It's all I can say. Like the benefits people get and the impact that it has. I've never done anything that I thought would where you're getting messages from clients at 2 months in, 3 weeks in, 10 hours into using hyperbarics, and they've had such significant changes. Like, it's a very powerful tool, which I'd like to expand on. But yeah, that's a rough overview.
Yeah, and I'm not surprised, and what I'm so pleased about is just ordinary people like me are coming across this kind of technology. We've seen, say, God, I mean, you see so many of these red light this, and it can do this and it can do that, but I think very few people really understand it. And I've gone on my own journey, and thanks to you, Alan, you've taught me a lot about it. But can we break it down for a minute? Let's start with the red light and then go on to the hyperbaric. What is red light therapy and how does it work? Because we see the gimmicks, but very few people strip it down and say, okay, this is what it is, this is how it works, and this is what it can do. You do that so well.
Sure. Yeah. So basically, red light is something that's not interfering with us in the way, say, people might perceive blue light. There's negatives around certain forms of light, certain times of the day. Red light generally is in this non-interference state, although it produces what we call a hormetic response in the body. That's where it can produce a level of stress in the body, much like exercise or sauna does, but then in that reaction, we're seeing those benefits occur. But it's kind of quite a passive experience to be under a red light panel. So you could have, we sell and rent red light panels, and we sell red light beds. So it goes on a spectrum in terms of the light density as well. So normally with red light, it's a spectrum between 600 nanometers and 1100 nanometers. 600 nanometers is more in the range of, say, skin healing, wound healing, collagen production, just that kind of dermal, subdermal layer going towards 700 nanometers. Then you're getting more into the cell, the mitochondria of the cell, which is obviously what is powering us essentially, which is producing all those chemical equations and producing along the electron transport train, which is our ATP production. So ATP is our sort of energy output. How you feel right now is largely down to how much ATP you are producing. So the mitochondria is what is called the kind of central powerhouse, is often referred to in the cell. So it's stimulating that, and then it can get even deeper when you start getting to 1100 nanometers. That can get really deep tissue, even into the organs and the regeneration and stimulation of those organs. So you have this spectrum, and it's in that spectrum where you're getting those perceivable benefits. So where we look to produce a product, it's often that we encapsulate some version of each of those kind of mechanisms. So we will have, say, a panel with 5 red light nanometer bulbs in it, and they will range from 600, 633, 750 nanometers, 830 nanometers to 910 nanometers. So you're encapsulating that full response. And what we're seeing at the moment is products that are becoming very popular, like the red light masks, for example.
Yeah.
They're a big selling product. You've got obviously Shark getting involved because they're seeing it's a trend product more than anything. Okay, they'll build a robust product, Shark, and they're getting known in the Dyson style form of the way they'll produce. But this is a trend product. And then you've got even influencers like Stephen Bartlett, who's now related to Bon Marché, who produced the red light mask. But in something like that, when you're looking at the red light masks, they're not all created equal. You've got some of them that are the skin 600 nanometer bulb, 630 nanometer bulb. But you can also buy them where you've got an 850 nanometer bulb in there, which is really getting to your collagen underneath the skin. So I would say look at the ranges of the bulbs when you're looking at it. And quite frankly, and I don't want to overcomplicate this too much because I can go on that journey a little bit, but when you're looking at sort of how powerful a tool is, so if you've got a panel or you've got a bed, you can actually evaluate what the MW2 is. So that's the density per square centimeter of the light itself. So the higher the MW2, the more light density you're getting per square centimeter through that sort of penetrative tissue. So you'll generate that little bit more cytochrome C, you'll generate that higher ATP response, you'll get that kind of more flourishing skin effect. So I'm actually 68 years old, so it's one of the benefits of owning a company that has red light therapy on it. So that's it. Does that kind of get to the nuts and bolts of some of it for you, or do you want me to?
It does, and this is why I'm talking to you about this. And I know, it's started off as a client came in and just loved our conversations. How does someone know what they need?
Yeah, good question. So quite often for us, the work has largely been done. So when it comes to client interactions, it's a bit different to the model we've set up per session. We've still some data to collection there for me to speak to that exactly. But if I take the inquiries we have for Oxydise itself, which come nationally, normally someone is siloed into their own particular group of complications, so to speak. So there might be groups on Facebook for MS or cancer recovery or biohacking, and people in an Aura Ring community. And normally they'll see a case study within that group, or they'll hear a podcast relating to their complication. There's normally a guru of some sort in each different field that's speaking to their particular complication. And then they'll espouse about the benefits of hyperbaric or red light. And then downstream from that, they actually come quite primed with an understanding that this could benefit me. Where the nuances begin to apply are, how do you apply that to the individual's, almost I would say, state of inflammation? So if you take, say, hyperbarics, you look at somebody who could be, in some cases for our clients, seriously ill. So they're in an incredibly inflamed state. Their biology is fighting left, right, and center, trying to put out fires. They've got limited resources within their body, a multitude of fires they're putting out. They're not taking enough calories, good quality calories, because they're struggling to digest the food, whatever it is. Let's just say late stage cancer, really, let's put it bluntly. And what you've got to be careful of is some of these devices, particularly hyperbaric oxygen, is creating a kind of reactive oxidative stress in the body. So it's creating a stress in the body, which then creates these pathways of improvement. So you can get BDNF factor in the brain, you can get this release of stem cells because your body's had the stress and now it's releasing all these good factors. But of course, if someone's in a highly inflamed state, and that could apply to stress as well, because stress is an amazing impact on the body, and we can
Oh
be
yeah.
affected by that in any walk of life. You've kind of got to manage what other stresses are you putting that person in, what load, before they then get the benefits in order to tolerate those benefits and move forward. So, for example, with hyperbarics, you wouldn't put someone who's highly inflamed on a protocol of 7 days a week or 5 days a week of hyperbarics if you weren't confident their body could handle that. So you'd put them on a lesser dose, lesser time. With red light, it's slightly different, although it is a stressor. In most instances, people can tolerate it. So we would get someone in, say at the centre, on a red light bed, and our beds are as high spec as they come. They're 129 MW2, 42,000 LEDs, really high spec beds. So we'd start them on around 10 minutes because that will get them used to the environment, see where their body's response is at. Let's observe. Again, this is non-scientific because the before and after of taking snapshots of someone isn't available with red light specifically. And because it's not invasive, we know they're not going to come off there and be in any kind of really deteriorating state. But we will just evaluate where they stand, how they felt afterwards, and then we can increase the minutes. But normally you wouldn't do any more than 20 minutes on a bed like that. But we would say the average is about 15. But done 3 to 5 times a week, great with red light to get those maximal benefits, start to see that kind of change in skin health. Observable, but then there's other factors with your energy, your clarity of focus, those kind of things. But with hyperbarics, you have to be a little bit more cautious to the application depending on where someone is. But if we're talking someone who's asymptomatic, they're a bit highly strung, they work hard, I think 3 to 5 sessions in a hyperbaric chamber a week would be great. And then, of course, 3 to 5 somewhere with the red light spectrum would be probably a good enough general rule towards them.
Yeah, and I think, I have a red light wall in my home, and I'll use it sort of 10, maybe 15 minutes, 3, 4 times a week. But, you and I were talking about it before we came on air, and, we've got a lot going on in the business right now. We're going through a period of accelerated change. There's a lot going on, and being able to take those 10 minutes out, which I did today, and just do my red light, my focus, my clarity is so much more. I sleep so much better. I notice on the days that I do have my red light. And I also understand, and again, we've talked about it, this is a very different journey for everyone. But for me, it is about that longevity of health. It's that play hard, work hard. There are not many people, certainly in our world, that look after the HRs. So when I came across this, kind of thinking about our community and, have you tried this? I'm also seeing a lot more, say, certainly in the States, when Samo and I travel a lot, I will go to a lot of these wellness centres and make sure that I'm topping up so I don't have the jet lag. I can keep up and all is good. I think the older you get, and we've spoken about this, the more conscious of you are of your past and history catching up with you. I mean, I was an absolute wild child, I could be up all night long and everything else. And now it's a real case of I need this to continue to not only function, but excel at it. And I don't think I'm alone. I'm sure you're seeing a lot more corporates, people from like me coming in now.
What you have is with all of us, we're kind of a complication of sort of what we do. So if you're going to make good decisions towards, say, hyperbaric oxygen, or starting your day with exercise, or you're priming your day with red light, these kind of things are going to lead you to have that compounding effect of increased energy, improved decision making, therefore better judgments over what you eat, and it becomes a compounding effect. And then your circadian rhythms improve. So you're going to bed at a better time. You're getting up at the right time. Your hormonal, your endocrine function improves. So it's kind of, these are kind of catalyst functions that can improve that overall decision-making energy. And therefore it compounds to make everything else function better over time. So in essentially then you become a more productive person. So one of the things that we have is, yes, we have clients of ours that are high performing people. And what they always kind of want to be able to do is take these particular technologies and not have them interfere with their ability to produce or do other things. And with red light, obviously, it's a kind of concentrated dose that can be 10 to 20 minutes a day, or 5 times a week, 3 times a week. And then you've got hyperbarics, however, which is a longer engagement time where you need to be in the chamber physically. Now, obviously, they're designed in a way where you can have a laptop in them that's safe to have at 1.5 ATA pressure, 2 ATA pressure, these pressures I could explain. But then you can use that at work and get the benefits of sort of oxygen to increase your energy, to increase your focus. So once we take away that layer of high performing people thinking, oh, this is going to interfere, I don't have the time, I've got family life, I'm professionally overstretched most of the time as it is, it's how those things are integrated. So normally those conversations start around that kind of terrain with someone who's high performing. And once they realize they can build this into their lifestyle with minimal friction, then that's kind of where we get that kind of take up energy from them. But yeah, there's definitely a growing movement of people who now move away from, I mean, if you take this kind of the popularization, so to speak, of, say, we now realize the damage of alcohol specifically. I think we've had one of our wonderful conversations before about this kind of nature of, you have these rites of passage. I did when I was younger, of alcohol's the same thing. It punctuates every occasion. This is the ingrained nature of British culture, many other Western cultures at times. And yet we are realizing that there is no safe quantity of alcohol in any amount. Not that I want to spoil anyone's day. If you can have a glass of wine, enjoy yourself, because I think there's definitely the psychological benefits, but there is no safe quantity on your cellular health that is limiting you in cellular function and potentially longevity just by those single drinks. And the more people are hearing from your Andrew Hubermans and others about this kind of impacts of this alcohol, I think people are now looking at how they spend their money, and they think, I want to live longer. I want to be more present in my relationships. I want to have, I mean, we want to get the maximum out of these lives. And I think people are more investing in wellness products now. As simple as that. It's a huge growth market, and it's scientifically backed. I mean, the same people that popularized the lowering of alcohol are also talking about how good your red light, how good methylene blue and optimization tools like that are. Just getting out, grounding. I would always come back to, for anybody listening, it's the core tenets of existence. It is still getting the sunlight where you can get it. It's connecting with nature. It's having a balanced diet that's limiting sugar and trans fats, and the wrong kind of carbohydrates, and being around family, keeping active. They will always see you live as long as you possibly can. And then these other things, they become your 1%. I think hyperbarics is a bigger percentage than 1%. I think it goes into 5, 10 potentially when you're using it regularly. And these are kind of optimizations around the core tenets of existence, really. But yeah, a lot more people in the professional world are coming in to seek this stuff. But what I will say on this is, one of the things we kind of observed when we first got into the business, and we looked at it as to scale, to produce our advertising nationally and look to deliver this equipment nationally and now internationally. I actually did think it would be a large majority of people who are biohackers and longevity people and stress people. And actually, a lot of people that commit to making these kind of purchases initially are people that are trying to improve their health from the ground up. So they are in serious situations with their health. And I just think we can avoid getting there if we're using stuff and in keeping your mitochondria healthy, keeping you active, keeping you out there, keeping you focused, keeping you making good decisions around everything else in your life. Am I going to have that glass of wine? No. Am I going to go out and see that friend and have a chat? Yeah, okay. It's kind of, and am I going to make a better food decision in this instance rather than the temptation? I'm slightly sleep deprived, I'm depressed, I'm going to have that chocolate bar. Do you see what I mean? It's kind of that decision making energy, really. But
and it's when I also look at some of the lifestyle changes we've made, not only around exercise but more organic food, and all, to your point, the whole holistic thing. Alan, I want to come back to the hyperbaric chamber now, because you talked a moment ago about the pressure side of things. Talk to us in simple terms the importance of that and how that works, because you took me on a journey with that when I first started going them, which was the whole pressure side of things, and I wasn't expecting that, but I kind of get it now and more over time.
Yeah, so there's a couple of misnomers, because there may be some people who listen who like don't they half know what hyperbaric oxygen is. And I think the entry level is often that more pressure is best. So traditionally you get the hard shell chambers, which are a physical stainless steel shell, and they are pressurized to 2 ATA, which is the equivalent to being 33 feet deep underwater. So what it's doing when you're in that kind of pressurized state is pushing the oxygen deep into your blood plasma and tissue. Now, you can get that, you can get a number of the same benefits, but not have to go to the same pressure. So the most common product, I mean, I have no dog in the fight. We sell all these different pressure chambers, so I don't have a devotion to either or really. But what we're finding in the literature really is that lower pressure chambers, so 1.3 ATA, which is 10 feet of pressure, and 1.5 ATA, which is 16 feet of pressure, and these are in almost like a cloth bag, essentially, chamber, obviously a safe material, but it's an easier maneuverable piece of equipment. It can get set up in someone's home very easily. This, say, 16 feet of pressure, which is the lowest pressure we do, actually has a number of benefits that are mimicking the 2 ATA, and actually has a number of unique benefits itself. So no one pressure has a divine right on all the best responses to this particular type of treatment. So with, say, for example, our athletes, and we've got a number of top level athletes, Premier League players. We've got one player, Anthony Elanga, in the Premier League, who's now sprinted more distance than any other player in the Premier League, the top football league in the world, arguably. I mean, a few Spanish people might say about their own league and stuff like that, but it's the top performing league in the world. He's sprinted more distance than anyone else. And 3 weeks after he started working with us, he noticed that he was sprinting towards an end of the game in a way he never had before. So he messaged me saying, in a game against West Ham, in the 93rd minute, he ran from the halfway line. I remember this particular moment, and he had an opportunity to score, but he said, I've never had that performance level at the end of the game. Now, over the course of the season, the data bore out that his VO2, his maximal cardiovascular output, changed through repetition of use of this equipment. Now, that was achieved at 1.5 ATA. That wasn't done at 2 ATA. So increase in VO2 max, material benefits to your cardiovascular system, the BDNF factor that's released in the brain, which increases sort of recovery in the brain and mitochondrial health in the brain, is often seen as better in 1.5 than it is at 2 ATA. However, at 2 ATA, which is the deeper pressure system, you get more into deep tissue bone marrow. So if you have breaks, God forbid if one of our players was to have a serious break, we would want them to get a 2 ATA chamber access as quickly as possible, which we would probably provide them. And then they can get that recovery, and it's going to stimulate the stem cells that are only produced in that bone marrow tissue. So there's kind of benefits that get there, but then there isn't so much, although there is benefits psychologically and neurologically to using a 2 ATA chamber. They're not seen as high in the 1.5, which is less pressure. So more pressure doesn't mean necessarily better outcomes. It depends on what you're treating. But largely, if you ever had access to what is called a soft shell chamber, which is the 1.3, 1.5 ATA chambers, don't turn your nose up at it. I can say from experience and data, they are a very effective piece of equipment, and you would get a decent dose out of it and benefit if you used it repeatedly. Sorry, you're going to ask a question.
So there's one analogy you keep using, BN.
So that's growth factor in the brain. It's kind of it's one of the hormetic stresses. Yeah.
Okay, so what is that? What is that exactly? And yeah, what is it?
So it's basically what happens when we have the pressure act on us. The body's under stress. So when we come out of that stress, a number of really good things happen. So when you're in a chamber, you're pressurizing that plasma, the oxygen deep into the blood plasma. So it bypasses what is normally carried in the red blood cells, the oxygen. It pressures it deep into your blood plasma, and the blood plasma is thinner, so it gets into areas that we can't often achieve with oxygen. So it gets into dying necrotic tissue, and it can start to have really incredible effects on areas that are often considered to be in high inflamed states because it's thinner. You can get through these kind of pathways. So that's one of the benefits. It increases red blood cells when you're in the chamber. You're in angiogenesis effect. It increases red blood cells in the bloodstream. When you come out, because you've been in an oxygen-rich environment, some of the best mechanisms happen when you leave the chamber. So your body goes into shock. So it starts overproducing stem cells. They're the precursor cell to the creation of any cell in the body. So the more stem cells that we produce, the more cells that be converted then into a brain cell, into a cardiovascular cell, into digestive region cells. So these are available resources that can be taken. As we age, we produce less of them. And as we get older, we have more fires that we need to put out. As we get more stress, we have more fires and we produce less resources. All these this unbalancing effect in different lifestyle categories and aging categories begins to occur. One of the other factors that really benefits us when we get out of the chambers, because of that lack of oxygen, we increase this BDNF pathway, which is a stimulant towards cellular health overall in the brain and increasing mitochondrial function in the brain. So it's very specific to sort of brain's function. But the higher the BDNF factor in the brain, often seen, the better the cellular repair, the better the energy, the better the focus, the better the clarity, the better the recall we have when we come to think of the end of a sentence or what we're going to say next. Or, do you know what I mean? It's just a clearer, more present existence can be achieved by having these kind of chemicals available in the brain, or molecules, should I say.
Yeah. And I noticed that I sleep better when I've been in the chamber, that my quality of sleep is, I would say, I don't think I sleep badly. But I do notice I have a much deeper quality of sleep when I come out, as also I'm postmenopausal, and my ankles do swell from time to time. It really irritates me because I still got a really young spirit. So I'm dealing with all of that goes on. But again, when I come out of that, I don't have that effect anymore. So that's some of the stuff you're talking about, right?
Oh, yeah, so like it's all inflammation based. So all these technologies are just giving your body more resources to fight problems overall. So whether that's complications in how you sleep, so therefore reducing inflammation in the brain, increasing melatonin, increasing those healthy cycles between cortisol and melatonin, which are in a dyadic dance all the time, as to the cortisol stimulating us and the melatonin is bringing us down, and that those cycles are occurring in us all the time, well, over the course of a day. But regulating that for sleep, it will help with that. If it's regionalized, as in the case specifically, bring it very close to home. My business partner in Oxydise is an excellent human being. Shout out to Igor if he watches this. But like, he has back problems, and he's literally clearing all that up with red light specifically. So
Oh,
specific
wow.
region, to that region of his body, which is in a highly inflamed area, he's always had problems back. That is now going, and he's able to train better than he was before. So it's always increasing resources. But yeah, so many clients, particularly with hyperbarics, I would say, once you start getting the region of 3 to 5 sessions, I happen to recognize it immediately, actually, for reasons I'll explain. But when you start getting into the region of 3 to 5 to 10 sessions, your sleep quality just improves. Your sleep drive improves. So that desire to get to sleep improves. So where some people consider I'm a night owl, a lot of that's just out of circadian rhythm. You're just a little bit out of sync with your circadian rhythm. You're not getting enough morning sunlight, those kind of things. And then you feel like I just stay up all night. Yes, we can be overstimulated, but a lot of that is actually just down to being a little bit out of sync with nature, essentially. But you increase your sleep drive, therefore your sleep quality improves. But without doubt, I would challenge anybody, if you do red light and then hyperbaric stacked together. So red light works really well with red light with hyperbaric oxygen at the same time. But do red light first because the vasodilator, so it increases the size of the cells, so you can carry more oxygen when you go in the hyperbaric. But if you do that and you monitor your sleep stats, I would defy anybody to not see that their REM sleep cycles improved and their deep sleep cycles improved, because it happens. It can be quite dramatic, actually. You can get people who average on, say, Oura Ring, an hour REM sleep and an hour and 15 minutes deep sleep, and they go up to an hour and a half, an hour and 40 minutes in one session, literally one session. So if you take that accumulative benefit invested in over time, that's again where you wake up the next day, more resources, more attention, more focus, more ability to get things done. So it's all compounding.
If someone wants to dip their toe in the water and they're kind of, well, this all sounds a bit expensive and time and everything else, where would you recommend? Let's just say, I don't know, you're a busy HR executive in Denver. Where would you recommend they start to see if this is for them?
This is the tricky thing, because I wouldn't say I have an absolute solution for that, because there is an element where there will be, particularly in the States, you've got a financial implication, because per session models in the States particularly can be quite costly. But it's about how committed are you to that improvement without being able to say, listening to me 100%, this is going to work for me. So I get that there's always this resistance energy in the cost, because in the UK, we've been able to design a business around a rent to buy model where you can call us and we can send out a piece of equipment to you, £1,500. You can use that every day for 2 months and you will 100% notice a benefit. And therefore, you're likely to then spend the rest of the money with £9,000 for a soft shell chamber from us. To then spend the rest is much more likely to happen because you've seen in those 2 months, I know the benefit now, I'm all in, I'm going to make that purchase. So 60% of people that have rent to buy from us. But that would go a lot further down if they just had to spend £9,000 up front. So I get there's always going to be some degree of cost friction until this technology is so far spread that perhaps cost can come down that little bit further. But I would say you could experiment if you're going to do it. And this is the frustration of centres like where we started, but where I see other areas in the country which we serve equipment to, is people will come in once a week or a couple of times, maybe a month, and they'll think, yeah, I feel a little bit better when I leave. But if you're going to do it, I would say commit to 3 or 4 sessions as densely packed as you can. So within, I would say, a 5-day period, and commit. Don't try not to leave too big of gaps. You may notice it after your first session. Don't think you should, but you may notice it after your first session. Try and get to 5 sessions in, if you could, a week. I would defy anybody to not begin to see, wow, I actually woke up this morning, I feel way more with it. I'm working till much later with a high degree of focus. I'm not lagging after 3 o'clock when I normally think I need a nap. Or these things begin to seep into your daily experience, where you can almost not remark that I woke up immediately thinking the world's changed, but it's kind of just permeated you in a way. But when you've gone 3 or 4 days, you begin to notice, oh wow, by this day, I'm now feeling way more attention span is with me for the duration of the day. I'm more present. I trained in the gym today and I felt incredible. That's a common one. I'll go out and I'll do a cardiovascular workout and I just feel fantastic. I'll do 30% in some instances. If I use this for say 10 sessions, I can start producing 20, 30% more just instantly out of myself almost from those things. So I would say pick a spot close to you where you can go and use this technology. And don't fall for the trap, or I'm just going to do it once and then I'm going to disappear, or I'm going to do it once every few weeks. Try and pack the sessions immediately together and then see how you feel from that. And then I think from there is when people begin to realize, wow, this is very powerful technology. And just coming back to, it's funny because a lot of people in the hyperbaric space, particularly, the joke is that we all come from a degree of trauma. That's how we found this technology. And I suffered chronically with my sleep. Like I had sleep problems that lasted 2.5 years of insomnia, where I was going literally 5 or 6 nights at a time with 0 sleep. And people can say, oh, you may have had micro sleeps here and there. That was imperceptible to me. As far as I was aware, I was living through this hell all day, every day, laying in bed awake, laying on the couch trying to sleep awake, up at night. I live in a high floor apartment. I can see the rest of the area I live in, and everyone's lights off, and I'm sat there and I can see out across this expanse. And I remember getting to day 4 on one of those occasions of 0 sleep, and I phoned, there's a call line in the UK called the Samaritans, which is a support line, because my brain was just falling out my arse, and I didn't want to keep relying on people around me and my relationship at the time. I just felt embarrassed by what was happening to me at the same time, and shame, and my brain's so inflamed I can't think clearly. And speaking to this person at the end of the phone and thinking, I can't keep this up. I can't run a business, run a life, maintain my relationships, maintain my presenceness if I'm being poisoned by sleep deprivation. So my trauma was this insomnia, and I tried everything. I went and did wellness retreats in Lancaster in the Lake District with various modalities. I did pulse electromagnetic field, I did nano V, photobiomodulation, all these cutting edge technologies. I was listening to every podcast on sleep, reading every book on it, insomnia groups that I could find online, anything, which is part of the problem when you're trying to solve the problem. It's part of the problem of not getting sleep. I will admit there's an element of that. But when I heard about hyperbaric oxygen, it was on quite an obscure sleep podcast. And I was very doubtful. I tried so many other things. And it was about an hour away from where I live. And I went and tried it. And that night I slept a bit, but I still was like, well, correlation doesn't equal causation. Maybe those two things are not linked. And I went the following week. Okay, I'm saying about don't leave the gap of a week. But
I was thinking that.
I know from experience, if you stack these closer, you get those. It will sink in much quicker. And I went the next week and I slept, and I was like, okay, there's something in this. So then I actually sourced a chamber and bought one, and it changed my life. So I got about 30, 40 sessions in very quickly in my first, and it even improved my ADHD symptoms. So my concentration, again, I come back to, my articulacy improved, my real-time bus speed of how quickly I could think, but more importantly, I got my sleep back, and I just became an evangelist. And then now when you look at the applications across health, longevity, I mean, you've got your biohackers in Brian Johnson, you've got your Gary Breckers that use the equipment. You've got this famous Israeli study now, which came out about 2-ATA and increasing telomere length. So they're the caps on the end of our cells. So when our cells replicate, and divide, when it divides, because the DNA has to be replicated in both cells, the cutoff, the cap is this telomere, and that telomere secures that this has been surgically separated correctly. And every time we use this telomere, it's ever so slightly, a nano level we'll never understand, is cutting at. And the shorter they become, the more hostile the rest of the information becomes to our cells. So the longer our telomeres, the better these protective caps over our cell division. It's become a longevity marker. Profound differences in just 2 months use of hyperbarics. These were increased by like 20%. The number of senescent cells in our body, so dead cells that accumulate over time through stress or poor lifestyle and age, these were reduced. So these clumps of cells that are not performing within the body, that interfere with our biology, were removed, were sort of pulled away. So the more that comes out, again, the application through for people that suffer with cancer, we all know someone that has that or close. There's some touch point to that in all of our lives, really. And that's the studies coming out against that, MS, as I say, autism, and again, longevity. It's phenomenal. But it just, again, it's quite simple, really. I always come back to it's resource allocation. You've got inflammation, you've got increase those resources, and your body will solve where it needs to go. That's really what it's about a lot of the time.
I think it's interesting. Something we talked about before we came on air was everyone also having their own individual journey with it, and that
Yeah.
really resonates with me because we are all so different and different stages and have been through different things, and therefore our resilience to these things is different, right?
Mm.
And I think that's the other thing that I really appreciate about this. And as I was saying earlier, I know when I need my red light. I can feel it. I know, and I will literally do a hard stop, even if it's just 10, 15, 20 minutes like I did today. It's like, okay, phone's downstairs, everyone leave me alone. I just need this 10 minutes red light, quick shower, back down, boom, I'm good. I think that is something we need more of in our lives, right? Just that
Yeah.
very personalized, prescriptive, you find your own algorithm and way of doing it once perhaps you've done these 4 or 5 or however many sessions you need, right?
I completely agree. It's a really good point, actually. So if you take the fact that I still continue to try and live a lifestyle that includes cocktails and the wrong kind of food and going on planes enough times in a year that compromises my everything else, I want to live my life and enjoy my life. And I went to Canada recently to see a friend, and in that 10-day period, I drank quite a bit. Actually, I will confess, and that's not the idea of being representative of a wellness brand to say this is also on the side what one can get up to.
But it's real.
Life. It's real life. So we all go to environments where you can be tempted to eat the wrong things, do the wrong things, but there becomes this intuition around this type of technology you've just described so brilliantly, like that I kind of felt coming away from that. I was like, right, you need to get in your chamber, get in the red light bed at the center, get your exercise done, clear away, and within 3 days of being back, my third, I think it was my second workout, I did a quite high intense cardiovascular workout, and I felt as good as I had done before I went. And I absolutely know, just in that very dense recovery period, that I using this tech and knowing intuitively, right, you just need to get in your chamber for a bit because you just feel it. And it doesn't have to be that I've gone and done, say, this extreme 10 days of more drinking than I would normally have done. It can be just that I know I've worked so hard, I'm neglecting my sleep now. I can feel it in my brain. It's just a pressure headache here beginning to appear. I'm groggy. I'm a bit more irritable. I know then just get in your chamber for next 5 days, and I'll do that, and it will come round. My sleep depth will improve. The inflammation comes down. Your body and your brain can begin to get hold of those issues and bring them into line, and then it's kind of you're a bit more regulated again. So whilst we'd always prescribe to people, ideally do your dense blocks to start with this kind of technology, so you notice those real benefits. After that, it's a maintenance dose, and that maintenance dose with time becomes an intuition dose, actually.
Yes.
But I wanted to actually just close the loop slightly on your previous question as well, when you said about the barrier to people getting into using this type of technology. One thing I love about you, Sam, and I think it's very representative of who you are to me, is you're very curious about the world, about things. You'll come into an environment like ours and ask questions and be very present and want to know what you can take in from the world that will benefit you. And
Yeah.
that's when you need an extraordinary life and what you're capable of doing and being around you, that energy for me of not just your curiosity, but your ability to do things with that curiosity and drive it to a larger audience that you're doing. And I think that's always part of it, is just maintain a curiosity towards these things, and that actually trying it, it's not that I'm going to part with the money. Just think of it as a sense of exploration, because there's always data to collect from these experiences. And no
Mm.
time spent doing hyperbarics or red light is bad time. I can assure you of that. No one comes out of it unless you have a slight adjustment with your ears. That's the only thing where you can get like a little bit sore in your ears initially. Other than that, which can be managed if you go with the right center, um, it's nothing but a benefit most likely. But it's maintaining that curiosity to these experiences.
Yeah, and it's funny, and I'll share this story with everyone else. Alan, you know this. So I was coming out of, I think, Miami Airport, and I had this gorgeous girl come up to me and say, "Oh, can I just borrow you for a minute?" And I thought, "Don't be fooled, honey. Don't be fooled." Anyway, so she kind of drew me in, and she had this really expensive kind of 11 billion pounds worth of serums and this, that, and the other, and give it a go. And I was kind of playing along because I was thinking, where is this going? So, she tried to sell me all these serums for about $5,000, and whoopie doo, didn't she was doing an offer for $250. And then she brings out this Elementis, anyway, I can't remember the brand, but this sort of $10,000 wand. And she used it on parts of my skin, and there was an instance, and I was like, she's been so well trained, but I was like, so have I, love. And anyway, so she came to the point where she said, you can use this, and she gave me some outrageous deal. But I often laugh about it because the whole experience between when I met her and when I met you was so different. She was close a deal, close a deal, close a deal. And actually, I spun her up in circles with my questions, which was, well, how does that do that? And what does that have in there? What happens if I did this, this, this first? And she couldn't answer my questions.
Mm.
She was a typical, I would say, sales rep who was clearly needing to make a certain amount of money that day before she left from the booth. And to your point, when I came to you, it was, well, how does that work? What does that do? What does that dial do? You answered every single question. And if you didn't know something, you walked out, you went to your library or you went to your phone and you looked it out and you gave me an answer. And that for me was kind of, it really replicated who I am, which is I care about what I do. I know I'm going to be better tomorrow than I am today, but that comes from curiosity. And I think you mirror that with who you work with.
Mm. Yeah, thank you. I think it's like the thing to be cautious with any prescription. Like I know there'd be an element of cynicism, and probably I've not managed to evade that during this conversation. Is that you've got people who are masters of a particular subject. So you'll have Matthew Walker with sleep. He wrote the book Why We Sleep. You've got
Yeah.
James from Breathe Through Your Nose or Your Head's Going to Cave In. Or you've got like with you've got Rhonda Patrick, take vitamin D because it's maintenance of 5% of your genome, or everything's going to fall apart in your biology. And there's these kind of specialists, and I think that I don't want to be so siloed that I just say, look, try this because it fixes all. Everything's kind of a multiplicity of things. We've got to look at the quality of our water. You've got to look at the quality of the food you're eating. You've got to look at the relationship you have to the sun. I think is very important. The exercise, all these core things. And if you can include through resources, or it works for you, this type of technology, among other things that you could potentially do as well. I would never just say this is it. The problem I have sat here or in any other situation when I speak to someone, and this is genuinely an issue for me, is I almost feel like screaming from the rooftops, this is amazing, this is amazing. I watch and oversee a company that this goes out to in so many instances where people are cynical before they use it or seriously ill. We've had vaccine injured clients who have literally not been able to walk, and the dad has got the daughter in this chamber, she's so severely impaired, and then he sent me a video of her walking down the garden, do you know what I mean, 30 sessions later. Clients with long COVID who have done 57 sessions, have got in their chamber at home twice a day in 1 month. They've done 57 sessions. Before that, they were unable, they were running offices before they got long COVID or COVID, and it turned into long COVID. and they were running offices and productive people. Now they can't even work for half an hour without being in the fetal position the rest of the day. And then after that number of sessions, they're booking their first holiday and they're going back to work. And it's like, oh my God, like it's very difficult to sit when you kind of have that experience. So I get why you get these specialists that go on major podcasts and they go on Joe Rogan. They say, look, if you don't sleep properly, you're going to get dementia after, I mean, at 50. Like because you can see some of it, but like I don't know, you really begin to feel it. I feel incredibly passionate about it. And there's me and we are actually, I don't know if this is oversharing now, but essentially today, through 2 years of the business, my business partner and I have taken nothing out of Oxydise. We work on it all the time and we receive nothing out of it. So we are essentially doing it for free. Obviously, there's a long-term gain to it, but we joke that we actually are doing this for free. If this was a business I didn't enjoy, I would not be 2 years in not taking something out of it. I'd want something out of it. But it is that nourishing that the people we work with, the team we've built, the technology, the relationship we have to our manufacturer who edits stuff with consumer feedback. We're always giving them feedback. Can we have this tweak? We want automatic decompression on our hard shells. We want tweaks to how they can adjust the pressure in real time so you can adjust it digitally on screens. And we want all this consumer change, but that just comes out of pure passion for it, because we know when it goes in someone's house or their workplace, they're going to get really good results with it. So if you get an elite athlete, and it's a weird thing, so I'm rambling a bit here, but
No.
when that Steve Jobs speech at Stanford, where he says, you don't realize if you push on the world, you can change it. And I didn't really fully understand that. I've had a good life to date, and I've had businesses, and I've had things I've enjoyed, and I've gone out to do extraordinary things physically. I've cycled across countries. I've done ayahuasca in the Amazon jungle. I've tried to live my life, right? And that's not humble brag stuff, but I'm trying to live my life. But I didn't quite realize that statement until Oxydise happened. And then you're dealing with a top level Premier League player who's now got an £80 million or £60 million move to Newcastle, a Champions League team, and he'll go on higher. And he's sprinting more distance than anyone else's Premier League in that league. And he's using red light and hyperbarics. And he's increased his VO2 that much. That's how distinct it is from other elite athletes. Or Ben Whittaker, who will be a world champion, is saying to me, I'm punching harder and I'm getting far less pain in my training camps than I've had before. And he's going out and smashing people, essentially, to use crass terminology when it comes to boxing. And he'll be a world champion, most likely. I didn't realize this was possible. I just did not realize that this is what it could do. And then you've got somebody whose tumor size is reduced by 80%. And they've gone from terminal prognosis and it's all over them. And now they're living a fulfilled, like they're able to do more with their bodies. They're out, they're with their families. And the regression is incredible of the disease, not their behavioral response. It's just, it blows my mind, honestly. But I don't want to wax lyrical too much on that, but yeah.
And I think that's why I love it. You know, this is unknown, and I know that there'll be people who are watching this later saying, "Oh, Sam, this is a whole new world," and to your point, saying, "I don't believe it," and that's fine too. It's, you know, everyone's got their own health journey. You know, I know for me, I am 51 years of age now. I'm running faster than I've run in my 20s. I know I need a regime in place that will help me deliver and be the best I possibly can be for my team, for my clients. And this is why I wanted to share this today, because to your point, I do think more people need to start to get curious about this and go on their own journey with it. You know, we're not here today, either one of us is saying, oh, you must or you should, to your point about these people who are so focused. And I smiled when you were talking about vitamin D, because Stephen Bartlett had an expert on the other day who was talking about vitamin D levels, and right at the end, and whose name escapes me, the expert was saying, but of course, before you take vitamin D, please go and get your vitamin D levels measured.
Absolutely, yeah.
Before you know, and it's that statement is the equivalent of a Daily Express journalist who was a great friend of mine, who got one of his biggest scoops when, as he walked with a CEO who everyone was saying was going to step down, and he said no in the official interview. All my friend said was, so what are you going to do with your retirement? I bet you're looking forward to playing golf. Yes, I am. and that was the scoop, right? That last moment where that expert said about the vitamin D, because again, to my point, everyone has a very different physicality, experience, stress levels, resilience.
Yeah.
To say to everyone, take 3 of these tablets a day at this milligram doesn't feel right to me. But that's with my critical thinking. Some may say I have poor judgment, and that's okay too. But that statement was really important. And again, that's why I really appreciate your approach and style, which is, do it this way, see how you go, because health is personal, and your personal health and well-being is something that is very important, but you're on your own journey with it. And I wanted people today to see and hear your experience and some of the things that it has been able to do, because I work with so many middle-aged women who are postmenopausal, and there's so many things that we don't talk about in this sector and on this side. And for me, I seen so many benefits with the red light, with the hyperbaric chamber, and I want to be using that more. So yeah, it's, if people are watching this today and saying, okay, I'll give it a go, but what I'm going to do first is I am going to go out there and get that mask. I suspect a lot of people will, and start to then go on more of that journey, which is a shame, by the way. But if they do, just remind them what they need to be looking out for and why they're doing it, because I think it's very easy to get a product rather than think about the why you're investing in it.
I think it depends on, obviously, price brackets. So what you always want to look at ideally is you as a holistic organism rather than just one located area. But the reason that product particularly is so successful is people are most self-conscious about their face, and it's mimetic to wear a mask. There's something in that glows, it radiates, people, it catches the eye. So it's had this almost mimetic effect on popularizing red light. But quite frankly, it's LEDs in a very restrictive area just around your face. So if you could find a panel or something that has a greater catchment area, then you can use that on any part of your person to have exactly the same effect. So it doesn't have to be a mask specific on your face. You could buy a panel. Probably if you're buying a shark mask to buying a panel, you could probably find somewhere in the sweet spot that's not that much more expensive. Suddenly you've just got a larger surface area that you can use. I get that it does strap on. You can just sort of work alongside it. So if there's a convenience issue to sitting in front of a panel or whatever, but with red light specifically, it's all about coverage. You want to cover yourself as much as possible. You want all of your biology to flourish. It's not like the subdermal layer of your skin is the only part of your body that needs nutrients, and there's nutrients being allocated all around your body all the time. So I would say try wherever you use treatment, specifically red light, is you want to encapsulate as much of you physically as possible, head to toe. But if it is touching the water and you want to see some benefits to, say, wrinkle recovery and that kind of thing, but then to go for one of those masks. But the masks will come in red light ranges, and it's that 600. Normally there'll be 600 and 633 nanometer bulbs, but you will find them with 800 nanometer bulbs in as well. And I would say if you can go for that, because you'll get that deeper tissue element. And we're not just our skin, we are all the productive mechanisms underneath it. And your collagen production is coming a lot deeper than the 600 mark. So that would be my suggestion, if that makes sense. But just closing the loop as well on your comments, that really titillate me, that the idea that these broad prescriptions are very difficult to manage at scale. Like there was a gentleman is at Harvard, Dr. David Sinclair. I'm not sure you've come across him, but he espoused about NMN, metformin, and resveratrol. So resveratrol is found in red wine traditionally. It clears out plaques in our heart and our arteries. It's a really good molecule. You don't find enough of it in red wine, by the way, so don't think when you're drinking that it's going to do you any favors. You need it concentrated. But like metformin is like a blood sugar regulator. A lot of type 2 diabetics would take it. And then there's obviously NMN, which is nuclear non-molecular mononucleotide. I can't remember specifically. I used to know it, but these three things. And the metformin. So when he's on a Joe Rogan podcast about 5 years ago, espousing to millions of people, 150 million people in a month listening to that. Right, goes on for years to be out there billion people have probably listened to that podcast. I wouldn't doubt now. Or probably that's a bit of an extreme, but not far off. But probably 500 million people at least listen to that podcast. And in it, he doesn't specify that metformin blocks your sirtuin pathways. So what it does, one of the reasons he was prescribing is it has longevity effects. So you don't have to take it for specifically diabetes. It blood sugar regulates, so it stops less of the problems that happen when your glucose is spiking, which again is a longevity sign. But he's prescribing this on an international podcast, and then afterwards he has to retract the fact that if you use metformin on days you do intense exercise, well, a lot of people who are listening will be doing on certain days, it can increase your chances of injury because it's blocking pathways for recovery. So when you're taking it every day, it's actually blunting the effect you'll get from exercise and putting you at risk of injury. But this is the Harvard scientist going on a large platform and telling that to the world, and who knows what the complications are downstream from that. And I've experienced it because I am very curious towards these things. I've regressed a little bit now, and I'll just stick to the things I corely know that are reliable, because a lot of my exploration, particularly the supplement side of things, have resulted in me harming myself a lot of the time.
Me too.
I've actually had more adverse consequences from a lot of things I've experimented with than actually benefits sometimes. And that's if you can observe that through our own evolved mechanisms. Anyway, sometimes you don't even know when it's harming you, but sometimes you're lethargic or whatever the case may be. But like bone broth, for example, is a big prescription for hair, teeth, skin. Drink bone broth. It's ancestrally aligned and it's a really good thing. But it increases glutamate for some, therefore increases cortisol, therefore completely messes with your sleep. And I'm in that category of experience. So it destroyed my sleep. Yet if I listen to Andrew Huberman talk about bone broth, I'll be buying it from one of his adverts if I'm not careful. And it's like it isn't a one size fits all system.
No.
So you have to be cautious when you go into this terrain and just self-observe and try not to implement or include too many things too quickly. Just bring something in, observe yourself for a week or two. Does it stack? Does it make me feel better consistently? Because I've actually had things where I feel really good initially and then I actually get worse. I've had that happen as well, which is even more difficult to detect. That the thing that started really working for you is now actually working against you. But
Totally.
giving
Totally.
up. So it's a minefield at times and stuff like that. So I do empathise, yeah.
Oh yeah, I get it. I get it. Alan, in closing, we ask 3 fun questions. Are you ready for our fun questions?
Sure. I'll judge if they're fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I can see you going, oh, where's she going with this? So my first question to you is, bearing in mind we're talking about health and wellness, so my bad, apologies in advance. What's your favourite cheese?
I actually more of a fetish for feta, actually. That's quite a thing. I just like that. It seems to add to a dish. That's been more my predisposition of late, but I probably would say that, yeah, because it changes the contour of a lot of the dishes I enjoy. So I probably would say that. I wouldn't eat it off the bar or out of the packet, but within a recipe, I quite enjoy it. Yeah.
Okay, good, good. Yeah, get some really funny answers for that one. So my next question is, what is a program or a film you've watched this year that you feel you will never get those moments of your life back again?
Oh, a terrible one.
Yes.
Oh, that is a funny question. Oh, what is one I would get back or couldn't get back? I have a recollection, although it's not this year. Is that cheating? That like
No, no. If
there was
one
like
comes
a film,
to
do you
mind
remember a film called
today.
Jeepers Creepers? There was a film, brilliant film, like Jeepers Creepers. It builds suspense. It's like set in middle America on a road trip, and they drive past this old farm, and it's a guy putting like what looks like a wrapped body down a chute. And then they're like, "Oh my god, did we just see that?" And he's like dressed in like dark sort of clothing and a sort of basically a sinister looking cowboy hat. And then and he gets into this van and drives, and they see it and they don't know when they go back. And in the end, it transpires that this psychological thriller that this entity who drives around a really high-speed old rickety van to try and catch them, and there's kind of a number of qualities about it that build suspense. Who is this person killing people? And they go into this where they see the body getting thrown down, and they see all these other bodies down there. But it turns out it's like some bat thing that has to eat body parts and then like literally like to survive and regenerate itself, and it's not really a human. And once it kind of lost this kind of psychological element, it became absurd. And I watched this in the cinema. So I watched something that had everybody on the edge of their seat with this suspense. In the end, every time this bat thing came on screen, everyone started laughing because it was just so poorly animated. I never forgot that you almost held like what was going to be like a 9 out of 10 on IMDb film to like just now a 4.5, just simply because it gone explicit what they thought was the image of what people would want to see of this thing. It was just absolutely absurd, but like the brain birth of my own creation or something relevant I want to listen to. But yeah, I don't watch that much TV now. That's part of my complex. I would probably like to watch it, but just haven't had a chance to watch anything lately.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. And my last question for you is, when you do go on holiday, let's just say you're going somewhere where it has a swimming pool and the sea,
Mm-hmm.
what flotation device would you take with you and why?
What's in like a dinghy kind of thing?
Well, yeah, or you might put a float in a swimming pool. We've had the most outrageous answers to this, which have been hilarious, and I cannot wait to hear what yours is.
Oh God. Okay. So what would I relax on in the swimming
Yeah.
pool? I would use something that resembled something disgusting, so I got to occupy more of that pool than other people did, so I didn't have to share it on holiday. But that sounds very unfair, actually. Yeah, I can't say what I was going to say actually.
Okay, maybe we should leave that one. I can see where
Yeah,
you're going.
maybe we should leave that one there probably for the purpose. Probably my sense of humor. It goes from like there's no real level. It goes deep very quickly. That's probably part of the complex. And I realise how many people would want to be subjected to it or held hostage to my sense of humor, because that's what it would feel like. So we'll leave it there.
And I love it. And if anyone is either watching this live or watching one of the recordings and they want to check it out, what's the name of the website? Share the website details with us so people can come along and find out more.
So we're redeveloping it, the next generation of site, which we've got the prototype launching, going to be dissected by a couple of our expert mentors tomorrow, but we're very happy with it. It's almost in the Aura Ring Whoop style, Apple style image. It's going to be really cool, but it's Oxydise, oxydise.co.uk. We do ship internationally, and our product cost is a lot lower than what is found, particularly in the States, for sure. And we can ship that within 10 to 12 days. We've set up videos if you wanted to buy one from us, and we'd have full support. Obviously, if it's a larger end chamber, we can support the install itself. It's a premium range chamber. But yeah, oxydise.co.uk. But we're red light and hyperbaric specialists, really. That's our main specialism.
Alan, this was a very different show for us today, and I really want to thank you for braving it and coming on for a great conversation. And if anyone here is watching this or watching the recording, please reach out to Alan. He really knows his stuff, and he shares my values, which is if something's not right for you, then he will make sure that he gets something that works for you. So without further ado, thank you, Alan. Great speaking to you, and we're going to cue the music. See you, everyone.
Thank you.